Hello, weary traveller. Before we begin, take a moment and settle in. Where are you tonight? Are you in your bed, under soft blankets, or maybe curled up on the couch, letting your mind drift through time? And what time is it where you are? Is it a quiet midnight, or the stillness just before dawn? Wherever you are and whenever you are, welcome. Now close your eyes and let your thoughts ride backward, centuries backward, through fog and forest and firelight, child, to a time when kingdoms rose and fell on scraps of parchment, carried by people who had no armies, no swords, only the weight of dangerous words strapped to their bodies. This is not a tale of kings or knights. It is the story of the forgotten, the ones who rode into storms, into enemy camps, into death, just to deliver a message. Tonight, we're going to follow the hoofprints of a medieval messenger, not the glorified kind in polished armour, but the mud-caked courier with frostbitten fingers, galloping alone through a dark forest, chased by wolves and war. What kind of person would choose this path? What secrets were worth dying for? And how many messages never reached their destination, lost with the bones of the one who carried them? You see, in the Middle Ages, a single scroll could change the fate of a kingdom, and the one who carried it was both invisible and indispensable. So lay back and let your imagination walk beside them now. We begin, not with a shout, but with a whisper in the dark. A rider mounts his horse. The letter is sealed, the gates open, and the road stretches into the unknown. Chapter 1. Sworn to the seal, the messenger's oath. Not every boy dreamed of becoming a knight. Some were too small, too poor, too clever, and for those boys, born with quick legs and quicker minds, another role waited, one that demanded silence, obedience, and courage no one would ever sing about. They became messengers. From the outside, it sounded simple. Take this scroll, ride to that castle, hand it to the Lord. But in truth, it was a game of survival, because every message carried more than ink. It carried intent. Sometimes a message meant peace, sometimes war, sometimes betrayal. A messenger could be 12 years old, riding on a borrowed donkey, mud up to his knees, or a grizzled old man who knew every back road and safe house in the realm. What mattered wasn't strength, it was trust. To become a royal messenger, one had to take an oath. Sworn before noble witnesses or church officials, the words were always the same. To never reveal the contents of a message, to deliver it with haste, regardless of peril, and to die before dishonour. Some took this literally. There are stories of messengers who bit off their own tongues when captured, so they couldn't be forced to speak. Others swallowed the scroll, hoping it would never be found. One monk messenger in France supposedly stitched a message inside his own flesh, believing it safer than ink and wax. The seals themselves, thick red wax, sometimes bearing the sigil of a lion, a falcon, or a burning cross, were sacred. To break one without permission was a death sentence. Even reading a scroll aloud to the wrong person could mean your tongue was cut out and nailed to a post. And yet, for all the danger, there was something noble in the work. To be the voice of a king, the breath of a queen, the thread tying fortress to fortress even as war loomed. Messengers were chosen for their loyalty. Some were raised from within noble households, taught to read, to memorize whole letters in case the physical scroll was lost. Others came from the gutter, boys who could run faster than any man on horseback through narrow city alleys, trusted not because of birthright, but because they had nothing left to lose. There was no glamour in it, no parades, no rewards. When they succeeded, they disappeared into the wind. When they failed, their names were buried under silence. Still, they swore the seal. Because they believed that even if no one saw them, even if no one remembered them, they were part of something larger, something sacred. And so they rode, through snow and siege and shadow, carrying words heavier than swords. Chapter 2. Through forests and fire, the roads of no return. The gate closes behind him. The clatter of hooves fades into damp silence. A single rider, cloak clutched close, leans low over the neck of a steaming horse. The sun is slipping, fast. And the forest does not wait for the unready. Let me ask you this. When was the last time you walked a road that no one else would dare? Not metaphorically, but truly, physically, alone, unarmed, carrying a secret someone might kill you to read. That was every road for a medieval messenger. There were no highways, no lanterns to light your way, only trails, some ancient Roman roads crumbling with moss, others barely more than deer paths through the woods. Travel was a gamble, a guess, a prayer, and the forests. They weren't like the storybook woods you may imagine. They were alive, yes, but not with fairies and gentle streams. These woods were thick with outlaws, deserters, wild dogs, and worse. Brigands knew the messenger routes well. They didn't care what kingdom you rode for. To them, you were a chance at coin, or a warm cloak, or just something to stab because the silence was too loud. Even nature was no friend. A storm could break the spine of your horse. A washed-out bridge could turn a 2-day ride into a week-long death march. Snow would erase paths and footprints. And in winter, the wolves came down from the hills, hungry, organized, unafraid of men. There's a story, whispered, never proven, of a messenger in Poland who made it halfway to Krakow before he realized the forest had gone quiet. No birds, no wind, just trees, leaning a little too close. By the time he reached the monastery, he was frozen to the saddle. His hands had gripped the reins so hard, his fingers had to be broken off one by one. He never spoke again, but he had delivered the scroll. And what about fire? Raiding parties often left smouldering villages in their wake, the exact same roads messengers needed to take. You could ride toward your destination only to find it burning. The very person you were meant to reach, now nothing but ash and ruin. And still, you had to go back, because your job was not to win. Your job was not to fight. Your job was only to carry the words. A bridge out, you swam. A gate closed. You waited. A horse dead. You walked. Because failure, true failure, meant more than your death. It meant silence between lords and kings. And silence could mean war. So each messenger learned the secret roads. The old smugglers' tunnels beneath abbeys. The deer trails above enemy camps. The frozen river routes that cracked like thunder under hooves. And the inns. Oh, the inns. They learned to judge an inn, not by its signpost, but by the smell of the hearth and whether the eyes watching from the dark corner moved with interest or menace. There was no map, only memory and intuition and luck. Every journey was the last for someone. And still, the next morning, another rider would leave the gate, and the road would swallow him, too. Chapter 3. The Enemies of the Unarmed. Let's say you survived the forest. Let's say the rain stopped. The wolves wandered off. Let's say you made it halfway through your route. That's when the real danger began. Because the greatest threat to a medieval messenger wasn't nature, it was people. No matter how many oaths you took, no matter what seal you carried, to most men, you were still just a body on a horse, and you might be carrying something worth killing for. And unlike knights, you had no armor, no sword, just your wits, and a name that no one would write down. War was constant. Feuds, family bloodlines, petty rebellions, rival bishops. A message could mean anything. A treaty, a secret alliance, a ransom demand, or even the location of a spy. Everyone wanted to know what was in that scroll. Enemies would disguise themselves as beggars or monks, offering bread or shelter. Then, drag you into a ditch the moment your horse was tied. If they thought you were valuable, they might let you live. Might. But more often, they'd break your fingers to force open the seal, cut your boots to look for hidden compartments, even search your mouth for messages stored behind the tongue. And if they found something, let's just say, no one ever wrote songs about the ones who almost made it. Some messengers rode in teams, but that wasn't always safer. 2 men meant twice the risk of betrayal. So many rode alone, their only companions the crows that followed overhead, waiting. And sometimes, your enemies weren't bandits or soldiers. Sometimes, your own side turned on you. Lords who regretted their messages sent riders after the courier to intercept them. Kings who feared betrayal would silence the very voice they had sent out. And rival factions within a court might stake your life on a game you didn't even know you were playing. There's a chilling story from Wales. A messenger sent by a border lord was stopped at a rival castle. The guards invited him in, fed him, wine, then hanged him upside down from the tower until the ink bled from the scroll tucked inside his tunic. The letter was burned. The body was never recovered. But 3 weeks later, that same castle was besieged. The messenger had made a copy, hidden in a hollow tree on the ride there. He had planned for betrayal. Because the best messengers, the survivors, weren't just brave. They were paranoid, cautious, and always listening. A simple farmer by the road might be a lookout for thieves, a kind washerwoman, could be a spy, a child offering directions, might be paid to lead you astray. Trust no one, speak to no one, show the seal only when the door is locked and the guard knows your name. Even then, keep one hand near the dagger. You didn't get a second chance. So the enemies of the unarmed were everywhere, and a messenger had to be more than a rider. He had to be a ghost, seen by all, known by none. Chapter 4. Letters of Blood and Ink. The scrolls that changed the world. You might imagine the messages these riders carried were dull. Trade receipts, church edicts, tax notices. Sometimes they were, but more often they were weapons, sharpened, not with steel, but with words. Let me tell you something. In the medieval world, a letter could start a war, or end one. It could accuse a king of betrayal, disinherit a noble's sons, command a bishop's arrest, or summon thousands of armored knights to ride by sunrise. One scroll, one name, one line of ink could set a kingdom on fire. And the Thay, one person who knew what it said, the messenger, it was not just parchment, it was power. But here's the tragedy. He could not speak of it. He could not protect it by explaining. And if he was captured, he could not save his life by revealing it, because the messenger's code was simple: die with the message. And many did. There were letters sealed with wax and marked by the signet rings of kings. But some were sealed with thread soaked in blood. A last message from a betrayed baron, written moments before his throat was cut. "Deliver this to my wife," it said. "Tell her the traitor is in the chapel." She did not wait for confirmation. She lit the chapel ablaze. Another scroll was rumoured to be cursed. A papal bull condemning a rogue order of knights. Every messenger who carried it died mysteriously, within a week. They say the ink was made from the gall of a murdered monk. Of course, those are stories, but not all stories lie. One man, a trusted courier of the English crown, carried a letter to the King of France proposing a marriage alliance. What no one told him was that a second letter was being sent that very same week to a different lord, promising the same bride. He delivered his scroll and vanished. Some say he fled, fearing what would happen when the letters were compared. Others say he was silenced, buried under a tree whose roots now grow twisted and black. And what about letters never meant to be read? Messages in cipher, invisible ink, made from crushed citrus and heat revealed only by candlelight. Poems with every third word forming the real command. A love letter to a duchess that was actually an assassination order disguised as longing. The T.E. messenger could never be sure what he carried, even if he read it, even if he thought he understood. Because in court politics, truth was layered, and a single sentence could mean 3 different things to 3 different people. So imagine the pressure. Imagine riding for 3 days in rain, your horse lame, your food gone, wolves behind you, and knowing that if you drop that scroll, if it tears or soaks or burns, the fate of an entire dynasty might shift. One messenger was seen sobbing on the steps of a burned priory. The scroll he carried had fused to his chest, pressed by heat and armor. He had no skin left to remove it. He died. But the message was delivered. It read, "Do not advance. You ride into a trap." And hundreds of lives were saved. So no, the medieval messenger was not just a man on a horse. He was a silent historian, a living scroll case, and sometimes a martyr remembered by none for words no one else ever saw. Chapter 5. The Dead Don't Deliver, When Failure Was Fatal. Close, your eyes for a moment. Imagine the clatter of hooves slowing, the rider's breath turning white, not from cold, but fear. He's late. The sun has already set. The message he carries was due yesterday. He's failed. And in the medieval world, failure was not forgiven. It was punished. Sometimes, fatally. Let's start with something simple. Delay. A day late with a message. That could mean an army moving without orders. An attack beginning before the peace was signed. Or a noble bride left waiting at an altar, her dowry unpaid, her family insulted. Messengers were whipped, publicly, stripped, tied to posts and beaten in front of townsfolk. Not because they were hated, but because they had disappointed someone who mattered. A baron in Burgundy once had his messenger dragged behind a cart for 3 miles. He had mispronounced the name of a noble family while reading the letter aloud. He survived, but he never rode again. In some cases, if the message went missing, if it was stolen or destroyed, the messenger was executed on suspicion of treason. Not because he was guilty, but because they needed someone to blame. Heads on Spikes sent a clearer message than any scroll ever could. There were even laws in parts of Italy and the Holy Roman Empire specifying punishments for courier neglect, failure to deliver on time, imprisonment, opening the seal or reading the letter, death, delivering it to the wrong recipient, mutilation, and who would testify for you? Who would speak in your defense? You were a nobody, a servant, a tool. If the message failed, so did you. One chilling account survives from the 14th century. A messenger carrying a royal pardon for a condemned knight was delayed by a flooded river. When he finally arrived, the knight had been hanged just 2 hours before. The messenger was forced to retrieve the pardon from his satchel and burn it himself. As the executioner stood by, his lord refused to look at him for the rest of his service, and the messenger never rode again. Even nature's betrayal, blizzards, sickness, broken bones was no excuse. There are cases of men crawling the last mile of a route, letters bound to their chest, bleeding and half-starved, just to say they had delivered it, because they knew. Death on the road was better than death by failure. There were stories of messengers drowning while trying to cross frozen rivers, and when their bodies were found days later, the scrolls were still clutched in their frozen hands. Unreadable, but still delivered. And sometimes the punishment didn't come from lords. Sometimes it came from yourself. The weight of failure, the guilt, the shame, the belief that you had cost lives or ruined peace could drive a man to the edge. One anonymous scribe records a man who threw himself into a monastery well after his letter arrived too late to prevent a siege. He left a note. It read, "I was the voice that fell silent. So in this world of ink and urgency, a messenger could ride for glory. But if he stumbled, if fate was cruel, if the gods had other plans, there was no forgiveness, because the dead don't deliver." And silence was always fatal. Chapter 6. Night Riders, the secret couriers of the crown. By now, your eyes are heavier. The world around you is quieter, and yet the story grows darker, more secretive. You see, not all messengers wore royal badges. Not all rode with official scrolls, stamped and waxed. Some vanished into shadows. They didn't ride with permission. They rode with purpose, and their messages were never meant to be seen, except by those who paid in gold or blood. They were the night riders, silent couriers of kings, queens, spies, and traitors. Let me take you back to a castle near the Welsh Marches, sometime around 1295. A rider approaches the gate. He wears no livery. His saddle is plain. But hidden inside his boot, wrapped in sheepskin, is a message that could collapse an alliance between England and Scotland. He is not a noble. He is not even a soldier. He's an orphan who learned to ride and keep his mouth shut. The message: instructions to assassinate a diplomat before he can cross into France. This is what no one tells you about medieval politics. Before war comes treason, and before treason comes the message. These night riders were more than messengers. They were living secrets, smugglers of truth. They could carry letters or poison, sometimes both. One such rider, known only by his codename the Candle, rode only at night, changing horses at monasteries, loyal to his master. He was never seen in daylight, never captured. But his name appears in several intercepted letters written by French lords, terrified of his arrival. Another rode with a trained raven. If he was pursued or killed, the bird was trained to fly home with the message tied to its leg. Imagine that, a medieval dead man's switch, a courier and a failsafe in one. The routes they took weren't paved. They were goat trails, forest tracks, and smugglers' paths. Riding at night meant wolves, thieves, and ghost stories whispered by tavern fires. One account from a Flemish monk describes seeing a rider without a face, only a hood, no torch, no horse breathing, only silence, then gone. Perhaps it was just a tale, perhaps not, but real night. Riders wore disguises. They'd switch languages, forge religious symbols. One might arrive as a humble monk, sandals caked in mud. But within his satchel was a ciphered plan for rebellion in Burgundy. Not all made it. A rider, sent by Queen Eleanor to warn a loyal count, was caught in a blizzard crossing the Pyrenees. They found him days later, frozen, solid, arms still wrapped around the sealed scroll. It was perfectly preserved. A different rider, caught by border guards, was sewn into a pig carcass and thrown into a river. Why? Because he refused to speak. Not a word. even as the executioner drew his knife. These messengers didn't serve kings. They served causes. They believed in kingdoms that didn't exist yet, in peace that hadn't been born, or in secrets too, terrible to be kept. And as they rode under starlight, the only thing louder than the hooves beneath them was the weight of the message they could never reveal. So tonight, as you lie still in your bed, imagine the silence of a horse's breath in the dark, the creak of leather, and the soft, deliberate thud of hooves as a night rider crosses a forgotten ridge. Somewhere, a kingdom is about to fall. Chapter 7. The Last Ride, when the road became a grave. We've crossed forests, mountains, castles, courts, and secrets. But now we ride toward the inevitable, the final destination. Because in truth, for many messengers, the road was the grave. Not just metaphorically, literally. Let me paint the scene. A rider leaves York with a dispatch for the southern coast. He has 4 days. The letter is urgent. It calls for troops to defend. Against a suspected French landing, he crosses moorlands slick with fog. The second day, his horse throws a shoe. He rides on foot. The third night, he takes shelter in an abandoned inn. A group of bandits arrives, looking for coin, for anything. They don't find much, just a man and his scroll. They kill him anyway. Because what if he saw something? He is buried beside the road in a shallow grave. No marker, no name. The message never arrives, and history never records the invasion that didn't happen, because it wasn't warned. Or take the messenger who tried to cross the Alps in early spring. A letter of peace between warring houses in Italy. They found him months later, bones gnawed clean by wolves. But the scroll, tucked beneath him in a wax-lined pouch, still intact. What cruelty! That history remembers the message, but not the man. There were messengers drowned in rivers swollen by thaw. Some who froze to death beside campfires they could never light. Others who fell from cliffs, their horses startled by thunder. And there were those who were never found at all, vanished between towns, gone as if the forest itself had swallowed them. One chronicler in Prague recorded a ghost story about such a rider. They say he still rides on stormy nights, cloak tattered, eyes hollow, clutching a scroll that no one can read. But not all endings were quiet. Some messengers died publicly, executed not for crimes, but because of what they carried. A messenger of the Teutonic Order was burned at the stake in Vilnius. Why? Because he bore a letter demanding the surrender of the pagan lords of Lithuania. They refused and killed the one who brought the words. In that world, to be the bearer of a message was to bear the weight of intent. You carried not just ink, but authority, aggression, hope, and fear. And when the message went wrong, when it arrived too late, or too early, or in the wrong hands, the messenger bore the consequence. No grave, no song, no eulogy, just a name perhaps, scratched in the corner of a ledger. Rider failed to return, and that was all. So now, as your breath slows, as the past drapes itself like a woolen cloak over your thoughts, imagine one last ride, a path lit only by the moon, a messenger, nameless, wounded, but still riding, because the message must be delivered, because even in death, the road must be finished, because the story must be told. Chapter 8. Blood and ink, when messages sparked massacres. You're lying still now. Maybe your breath has slowed, but history, it doesn't rest. It waits, like parchment in firelight, ready to burn, with just a single word. And so tonight, let me show you what happens when a messenger's arrival ignites the world. It's the year 1377. The 100 Years' War is raging like a fever. In a small French village near Limoges, a weary rider arrives at dawn. He brings a scroll from King Charles V. The villagers gather, hoping for news of protection, food, peace. But the scroll is not for them. It is for the garrison commander. And it carries a single command: purge the village, suspected of harboring English allies. What follows is slaughter. Farms are burned. Children cry for mothers who no longer breathe. The village is erased, not by sword, but by message, and the man who carried it. He weeps alone beside the chapel ruins. He had no choice. His job was to deliver, not question, not think, only ride. Across the continent, in Bohemia, a similar story unfolds. A courier arrives in Kutna-Hora with a sealed letter bearing the Imperial Eagle. The message: a royal decree stripping the local bishop of land and power. The bishop's men riot. They burn the courier's horse alive. They stone the messenger. The town erupts into civil chaos that lasts weeks. All because of one man's saddlebag. Now consider Constantinople in 1204. A Venetian runner, not a noble, but a fast-footed boy, delivers an ultimatum from the Doge to the Crusader camp. Inside, a betrayal sealed in wax. The Fourth Crusade, which should have liberated the Holy Land, instead turns inward. The Crusaders sack Constantinople. The boy was later found in the gutter, murdered by a soldier who blamed him for the carnage. But he wasn't the cause. He was the wick, the spark that touched the message. And so we must ask, is the rider to blame for the fire he carries? Imagine holding a sealed scroll, knowing that inside may be the death of a town, a war, a faith. Do you open it? Do you refuse? Or do you ride on and let the world burn behind you? The medieval messenger did not always choose the message, but history remembers them as if they did. So tonight, as your thoughts slow and the edge of sleep draws near, imagine not just the message, but the price of carrying it, and the weight of ink that bled like blood. Chapter 9. The false messenger lies on horseback. Now we come to perhaps the darkest twist in our tale. Not every messenger brought truth. Some brought deception. Some rode not to connect kings, but to confuse them. Not to end war, but to prolong it. Let me take you to the year 1453. The siege of Constantinople is underway. But in the countryside beyond the walls, a lone rider approaches a Turkish camp. He is dressed as a Venetian courier. He speaks Latin. He claims to carry a message from the Genoese fleet. Relief ships are arriving. Prepare a diversion at sea. The Ottomans react. They reposition artillery. They split their forces. But there are no ships. The rider was an agent of the Byzantines. His goal: to buy 48 hours. And it worked. A single man, a forged seal, a lie spoken with confidence, and the fate of an empire shifted. But false messengers were dangerous weapons. If caught, their punishment was not mere execution. It was ritualistic obliteration. In Hungary, a captured fake herald was blinded with hot irons, then hanged upside down from a church bell. Why? Because his false news had caused a garrison to retreat, leading to the slaughter of an entire town. In England, during the War of the Roses, a man disguised as a Lancastrian courier delivered a forged surrender letter to a Yorkist commander. The commander laid down arms and was executed on the spot. When the forgery was discovered, the messenger was flayed, alive, his skin nailed to a barn door as a warning to others. But still, they rode, because deception was a tool as sharp as any sword. There were even entire orders of false messengers. In 13th century Sicily, A secret guild called Gli Ombrosi, the Shadowed Ones, specialized in message tampering. They intercepted scrolls, altered keywords, and resealed them with forged wax stamps. They operated in silence for 30 years, altering treaties, misdirecting armies, and forging alliances that never existed. One royal marriage was called off because of a single intercepted message, rewritten to say the bride was sick with the devil. She died unmarried. The alliance collapsed. The war resumed. So now, as you lie still, and the breath of sleep brushes your cheek, ask yourself, would you trust a man on horseback with a scroll? Would you follow his words into battle? Would he? You open the seal and read the truth, or a carefully crafted lie. In the Middle Ages, a lie could ride faster than truth, and often it got there first. Chapter 10. Riding Through Hell, the Messenger and the Plague. How quiet is the night where you are? Now imagine that same silence, broken only by the cough of a dying child and the scraping sound of a rider's boots in a town emptied of breath. It is 1348. The Black Death has arrived, but kings still need letters, armies still require orders, and villages, even the ones dying, must still pay taxes. So they send the messengers through cities blackened by death, over fields where no birds sing. One such man, we know only as Matteo of Siena, was ordered to ride from Florence to Marseille, a distance of over 700 kilometers, with a sealed document warning of plague movement to French territories. Matteo rode fast. He slept in barns, washed in streams. He passed through entire towns where even the dogs had stopped barking because there were no people left to feed them. And still, he rode. Along the way, he was turned away from inns. Peasants threw rocks at him. In one village, he was mistaken for a plague demon and had to fight for his life with a cooking pan. He arrived in Marseille a skeletal figure, shivering and pale. He handed over the scroll and died within 48 hours. We know his name only because it was scrawled on a ledger. Matteo di Siena, message delivered, body burned. He wasn't alone. In England, messenger routes were considered vital plague vectors, so they were given iron masks, crude helmets meant to filter bad air. Some were even nailed shut. Can you imagine? Riding for 40 miles, a day on a diseased horse, sweating and coughing with iron over your mouth, and still being told, keep going. One French duke offered his messengers vinegar-soaked tunics. Another, more cruelly, burned the shoes of any messenger returning from a plague zone, then made him walk the next week barefoot. But the system had to keep running, because, even during death, the machine of the Middle Ages kept turning, and someone had to carry the word from the dying to the living. So tonight, as you listen to the soft sounds around you, spare a thought for the silent riders in black who walked through hell to deliver just one sentence before falling into the same silence themselves. Chapter 11. The Women Who Rode, Forgotten Riders of the Shadows. We often imagine the medieval messenger as a man, a bearded, rugged figure galloping across moors. But what if I told you some of the most fearless messengers of all were women? Let me take you to 15th century Spain. Isabella de Villena, a nun, a scholar, and a courier. Yes. During the War of the Castilian Succession, she delivered messages between factions loyal to Queen Isabella and those opposing her marriage to Ferdinand. Dressed as a washerwoman, she crossed checkpoints with coded letters sewn inside the hems of her robes. She carried secrets that could have ended her queen's rise and her life. Yet she did this not once, but over 24 times. When she died, the Queen herself sent roses to the convent, saying, "She rode without horse or armour, only faith, and now crossed the Channel to Scotland." In 1306, Mary Bruce, sister of Robert the Bruce, disguised herself as a merchant's wife to deliver orders to rebel commanders. She travelled by ox cart, with parchment hidden inside wax-sealed cheese wheels. When caught by English soldiers, she convinced them the letters were recipes. They laughed. She passed. But later, when her secret role was discovered, she was imprisoned in a cage, literally, and displayed on the walls of Roxburgh Castle for 4 years. Yet in all that time, she never confessed. And in Flanders, in the 12th century, a mysterious woman, known only as the Sparrowhawk, was said to carry coded messages across enemy lines by releasing trained hawks with small scrolls tied to their legs. When her birds were shot down, she rode herself. Legends say she once crossed 80 kilometers in a single storm-drenched night, with 3 broken ribs, to deliver one name, the identity of a traitor within the Flemish court. She vanished from the records after that, but a stained glass window in Ghent still bears her image. A hooded woman, a hawk perched on her wrist, and a scroll in her hand. So, tonight ask yourself, how many messages were saved not by soldiers, but by silent women in cloaks? How many wars were turned not by swords, but by the courage to carry a truth through danger? We may never know all their names, but their footsteps are still etched into the dirt roads of history. They didn't ride for glory, they rode for cause, and for them that was enough. So sleep well, knowing that some of history's bravest messengers rode quietly and never asked for thanks. Chapter 12. The Poison Scroll, when a message was a murder weapon. It's late. Maybe you're already halfway asleep. But imagine you're a noble in the year 1492. You've just been handed a scroll from a loyal courier, freshly arrived from Rome. You untie the wax seal, and by morning, you are dead. No blade, no scream, just silence. This is not fiction. It is the story of Cardinal Orsini, whose death launched one of the Vatican's darkest whispers. The rumour that Pope Alexander VI, yes, the infamous Borgia Pope, had turned messengers into murderers. Historians suspect that certain scrolls delivered to political enemies were laced with caliphate powder, a rare arsenic-based dust that absorbed, through the skin, untraceable, unstoppable. And who carried them? Not assassins, but trusted messengers, unaware that what they held in their hands was death itself. Let's step into the shoes of one such man, Giovanni, a papal courier. He was not a killer. He rode from convents to castles. He prayed, he fasted, and when he was handed a velvet pouch and told, "Deliver this to Naples, no delays, no questions," he obeyed. He never knew the scroll inside had been dusted with poison, that as he passed it to the Duke of Aversa, he had also delivered a death sentence, and the Duke, upon reading it, simply collapsed. No blood, no cry, just gone. Giovanni was praised for diligence, paid double, sent off again. He likely died believing he'd served the church, and he had, because in the Renaissance power was not shouted, it was whispered, delivered, and sealed with wax. Some scrolls brought peace, others war, and some were quiet executions dressed as parchment. So tonight, as you drift deeper into dreams, think of how fragile fate once was. That even paper could become a dagger, and even the holiest messenger could become an unknowing angel of death. Chapter 13. The Message That Saved a Village. Not all messages carried doom. Some carried hope, delivered not with swords, but with aching feet and frozen hands. Let's go to Norway. Winter of 1719. A remote fjord village called Skjegedal was buried under snow. Food was gone. Children cried themselves to sleep with hunger, and wolves roamed the outskirts, drawn by the scent of death. Their only hope? A message. A desperate plea to the governor in Bergen, 200 miles away. But the roads were gone, the sea was frozen, and storms crushed every attempt to leave. Enter Erik Vangen, a woodcutter's son, just 17. No title, no armour, just thick boots and a heart full of stubbornness. He volunteered to carry the message. Not by horse, they'd all starved. Not by sleigh, they'd broken. He went on foot. They say he wrapped the letter in wool, tucked it under his shirt, and walked into a white hell. For 11 days, he crossed frozen rivers, dodged falling trees, and slept in snow burrows. He ate bark. He drank melted snow. His nose bled every day from the cold. On the 8th day, he fell through. Ice. He almost drowned but clawed out. Frozen shirt fused to his skin. Still, he kept going. He arrived in Bergen, barely alive, collapsed on the governor's doorstep. The letter was soaked, but the ink had held. Within 24 hours, supply sleds were dispatched. The village was saved. Erik's feet never healed properly. He limped for the rest of his life. But every new year the villagers lit a torch for him. And on his gravestone it reads, "He walked so others could live." This too was the life of a messenger. Not always death. Sometimes mercy, not always grand. Sometimes just a boy and a letter. So as you lie there, warmed and still, remember the ones who walked into storm and ice with nothing but a folded message, and changed the fate of everyone behind them. Chapter 14. Secrets in the stitching. Messages hidden in plain sight. As you settle deeper into your rest, imagine the quiet rhythm of needle and thread, the soft prick of the needle, the careful weaving of fabric. But beneath that gentle craft lies a secret world, where every stitch can carry a message, and every hem might hide a whisper meant only for the eyes of the intended. In the shadowy courts of 17th century Europe, open communication was often too dangerous. Enemies lurked at every border. Spies prowled in every city. So couriers and spies turned to one of the oldest disguises: clothing. Enter Eleanor, a seamstress in the court of Louis XIV. By day, she mended gowns and embroidered lace. By night, she crafted secret messages into her handiwork. Tiny, nearly invisible knots, carefully placed patterns of thread, coded symbols sewn into hems. One of her most daring missions was to deliver news of an impending attack on the French border. Elena stitched a map, encoded in the folds of a silk shawl, and sent it hidden beneath the hem of a noblewoman's dress. The woman travelled through enemy territory, passing guards who saw nothing but beautiful fabric. The message passed through hands like a secret, heartbeat, silent and unseen. Even today, some of Elena's surviving pieces bear subtle markings. Historians who study them decode patterns that reveal entire battle plans and political intrigues. It was not just fabric that hid secrets. Ribbons, buttons, even the direction of pleats, all could carry meaning. And the messengers? They became walking puzzles. Imagine the tension of a courier who must hide their message in the very clothes they wear, knowing that one careless move could unravel everything. They were artists of invisibility. So, as your eyelids grow heavy, and the world dims, picture the quiet courage of those who stitched with two hands, one crafting beauty, the other weaving secrets. In the silent art of sewing, they sent ripples through history, proving that sometimes the most powerful words are the ones never spoken aloud. Chapter 15. The Messenger's Last Ride, Betrayal and Redemption. Now, let your mind drift to a misty dawn in 1645, in the mist-shrouded hills of Ireland. A messenger rides hard through the thick fog, clutching a sealed letter that could change the fate of a rebellion. His name is Cian O'Connell. Cian served the Irish Confederates during the Wars of the Three Kingdoms, a time when alliances were fragile and trust was rarer than gold. On this day, Cian carries a plea for aid to the Scottish Covenanters, potential allies who might turn the tide against the English Parliament forces. But betrayal waits in the shadows. One of Cian's closest friends, Sean McMahon, had secretly switched sides. As Cian approaches a forest crossroads, Sean appears, smiling, but with a dagger hidden beneath his cloak. Sean tries to wrest the letter away. Cian fights fiercely, knowing the message must get through. He escapes wounded, bleeding, and barely able to ride, but his resolve is unbroken. Over the next 2 days, Cian pushes himself beyond all limits, riding through cold rain and swollen rivers. At one point, his horse collapses. He carries the letter in his teeth and runs the last 5 miles on foot. When he finally reaches the Covenanters, breathless and near collapse, he hands over the letter. His message secured, Cian collapses and awakens weeks later in a friendly village, nursed back to health by strangers. His betrayal cost him everything: friends, comfort, and safety, but his courage saved many lives. And when peace finally came, Cian was remembered, not as a fallen rider, but as a symbol of endurance and loyalty in a fractured world. So, as your breathing slows and your body sinks into rest, remember Cian's final ride, a story of betrayal, but also redemption, a reminder that even in the darkest hours, courage can carry us through. Chapter 16, Whispers on the Wind, the Role of Carrier Pigeons. As you drift further into the gentle folds of sleep, imagine the soft flutter of wings overhead, tiny birds trained to carry secrets faster than any horse or man. For centuries, carrier pigeons were the silent messengers of war and peace, trusted to cross enemy lines and treacherous skies with nothing but a scroll tied beneath their feathers. Picture a battlefield in 1914, the first year of World War I. Amid the thunder of artillery and the mud-soaked trenches, men relied on these small birds to send vital information. One famous pigeon, Cher Ami, saved nearly 200 soldiers by delivering a critical message despite being shot through the breast. Cher Ami's story is one of perseverance. Imagine the pain, the fatigue, the desperate flapping to carry on. But these birds were more than wartime heroes. They bridged empires, connected distant cities, and kept secrets safe from prying eyes. Trainers would raise pigeons with careful devotion, imprinting home locations in their minds, so they could always find their way back, no matter how far. Yet, the journey was never easy. Storms, predators, and exhaustion claimed many. Still, the pigeons flew, across mountains, rivers, and battlefields. Theirs was a trust born of instinct and loyalty. And when you hear the soft cooing in your dreams tonight, remember Cher Ami and the countless birds like her, the humble wings that carried the fate of nations on the whisper of the wind. Chapter 17, Invisible Ink and Hidden Words, the Art of Secret Writing. As your breath slows and your thoughts soften, imagine a blank sheet of paper, seemingly innocent, but holding secrets that only the cleverest eyes could uncover. Invisible ink was the spy's silent ally for centuries. From ancient times to the Cold War, messages hidden in plain sight saved lives and toppled empires. In the 18th century, during the American Revolution, spies used lemon juice, milk, and even urine to write messages that appeared only after heating the paper gently. One of the most famous users of invisible ink was Agent 355, a mysterious female spy in the Culper Ring, who passed secrets critical to the success of George Washington's campaigns. Imagine her carefully dipping her quill into juice, writing words that looked like blank paper but carried the weight of rebellion. But the art went beyond lemon juice. During World War II, invisible inks became chemical marvels, some readable only under UV light, others revealing themselves, with special reagents. The stakes were high. A single slip-up could mean death. Couriers carried these invisible messages, knowing that the eyes of the enemy searched for even the faintest ink. And yet, the secret words survived. So tonight, as your thoughts drift between reality and dreams, consider the power of silence, of hidden words. In the quiet spaces where ink fades to nothing, history's deepest secrets have waited for the light. Chapter 18. The Signal Fires, Messages Across Mountains and Valleys. As your mind gently drifts, imagine the darkening sky of a vast mountain range, where the last rays of sunlight fade into twilight. Suddenly, a bright blaze flickers atop a distant hill, a signal fire, alive with crackling flames and dancing sparks. Long before telegraphs or radios, entire kingdoms and tribes communicated using signal fires. Simple, yet powerful tools that could send warnings or commands across vast distances in minutes. Picture the Scottish Highlands in the 17th century. Clan warriors watched over watchtowers perched like hawks on jagged peaks. When danger loomed, a spark would ignite on the highest hilltop, sending a chain reaction of fires blazing across the horizon. The message could be a call to arms, a warning of invasion, or news of a victorious battle. Each pattern of flames, each timing of the blaze, had a meaning understood only by those who watched and waited. The system was not without risk. Enemies tried to mimic or extinguish the fires, hoping to deceive the watchers. And the watchers, they stood vigil through freezing nights and bitter winds, eyes fixed on the flickering horizons. Imagine a young sentinel, wrapped in a woolen cloak, heart pounding as the fire suddenly bursts to life on the far ridge. With practiced speed, he lights his own beacon, sending the warning further down the line. This ancient dance of fire and shadow was the lifeblood of communication in a world divided by mountains and forests. So tonight, as your breathing slows and the darkness embraces you, imagine those flames, silent voices carried on the wind, connecting distant hearts across the wild and whispering landscape of history. Chapter 19. Echoes of the drums, the language of sound in war and peace. Now, as you sink deeper into rest, let your ears imagine the steady rhythm of drums beating through the jungle or across open plains. For centuries, drums were the voice of many cultures, a way to send messages over distances too great for the human voice. From the dense rainforests of Africa to the vast steppes of Asia, drum languages encoded warnings, celebrations, and commands. Picture the Ashanti Empire in West Africa, where skilled drummers could replicate the tones and rhythms of spoken language. Their drum beats carried through the air like a secret code, each rhythm a word, each pause a punctuation. Messages like "enemy approaching," "gather the warriors," or "the chief commands peace" could echo miles away. In times of war, the drums became the heartbeat of armies, setting the pace of marches and signaling maneuvers, but they were also the voice of joy. During festivals and ceremonies, the drum beats called people together, telling stories without a single word. Imagine a drumbeat waking the dawn in a village, its rhythms weaving a tapestry of history and community. Drummers trained from childhood, learning to speak with their hands and hearts. And sometimes, these rhythms even saved lives, alerting villagers to danger before it arrived, giving people time to prepare or flee. So, as your breath deepens and the world grows quiet, listen with your imagination to the distant drums. the ancient language of sound that has connected humanity across time and space. Chapter 20. Mirrors and Messages, the art of signaling with reflection. As your mind relaxes deeper, picture a bright sun glinting against a polished surface, a mirror, a piece of metal, or even a shard of glass. In the vast deserts, open plains, and rocky cliffs of ancient times, reflected light became a messenger, flashing signals across impossible distances. Imagine the Native American tribes of the Southwest, who used polished stones, called sun mirrors, to communicate. With a tilt here, a flick there, a sharp flash could send a message, a language of light cutting through the heat waves and dust. This method was delicate and precise. A sudden gust of wind, a cloud passing overhead, or a careless movement could scramble the message. Yet, the brilliance of the reflected sunbeam captured the attention of distant watchers, sending warnings of approaching enemies or calls for celebration. In some cases, armies use polished shields to flash coded signals to commanders miles away, directing troop movements in the chaos of battle. Even explorers and sailors depended on reflected light, signaling other ships or distant posts, bridging vast expanses where words would fail. Imagine a lone scout on a rocky ridge, spinning a small mirror in the blazing sun, sending urgent messages to his tribe below. It was an art of patience, skill, and hope. So, as your breath slows and the world fades, picture those glimmers of light, the silent messengers flashing through history, bridging the gap between hearts and horizons. Chapter 21. Tunnels of Secrets, the hidden passages of communication. Now, let your thoughts descend into shadowy underground corridors where the world above is muffled and distant. Throughout history, secret tunnels have been the veins of hidden communication, silent passageways carrying messengers, supplies, and whispers beneath the feet of enemies. Picture the ancient city of Derinkuyu, deep beneath the mountains of Cappadocia in Turkey, a vast underground complex stretching dozens of levels below ground. These tunnels were not just refuges from invaders, but secret routes for messengers to slip unseen across besieged lands. Imagine a courier threading through narrow stone passages, the faint echo of footsteps blending with dripping water. By torchlight, messages were exchanged in hushed tones, passed hand to hand in hidden chambers. In medieval Europe, castles often contained secret tunnels, escape routes and communication lines carved into the rock or concealed beneath floors. One famous tale tells of a messenger who used a hidden passage beneath a besieged fortress to deliver urgent news that saved the defenders from certain defeat. The risks were immense. A wrong turn could mean being trapped or discovered. Yet, these tunnels symbolized hope and resilience, a lifeline in times of fear and uncertainty. So tonight, as your body relaxes and your mind drifts, imagine yourself moving silently through these ancient passages, a shadow in the dark, carrying the fragile thread of hope that runs beneath the surface of history. Chapter 22. The secret language of smoke, signals carried on the breeze. As your thoughts gently wander, imagine a vast plain where tall grass sways beneath an endless sky. From a distant hill, a curl of smoke rises, soft, pale, and drifting slowly into the air. Smoke signals, one of humanity's oldest methods of communication, were used by countless cultures to send messages across great distances, relying on the language of puffs, columns, and pauses. In the American West, Native American tribes mastered this art. Single plume might say all is well, while a series of quick puffs meant danger is near. These messages depended on the watcher's keen eye and deep understanding. Imagine a young scout, watching intently from another ridge, counting the number and length of smoke bursts, interpreting warnings of approaching enemies or calls for gathering. But smoke signals were not just for war. They carried news of hunts, celebrations, or changes in seasons. The timing was crucial. Too much smoke, and the message could be lost. Too little, and it might never be seen. Weather played its part. Wind, rain, and fog could all hide the secret language. Yet, despite these challenges, smoke signals connected distant groups, weaving a web of communication across vast landscapes. Tonight, as your breath softens and your mind drifts between worlds, picture that curling smoke, a fragile thread of connection, rising slowly toward the stars, carrying messages long forgotten, yet still alive in the rhythm of history. Chapter 23. The voice of the whistle, sound signals through the ages. Now, imagine the sharp, clear whistle cutting through the silence of early morning mist. Whistles, with their piercing tones, have long been used as simple yet effective signals, from shepherds across hillsides to naval officers aboard ships. In medieval times, whistles called out warnings in crowded castles, alerted watchmen to danger, or summoned troops to arms. The pipe or whistle was a voice that travelled far, loud enough to be heard over the noise of battle or the rush of a forest. Think of the British Navy during the Napoleonic Wars, where whistle signals directed complex manoeuvres on stormy seas. Each sequence of notes was a code understood only by trained ears, a language of urgency and order. In rural villages, shepherds used whistles to manage flocks scattered across hills and valleys. The sound would bounce from ridge to ridge, guiding animals and people alike. Imagine a shepherd boy standing quietly on a hillside, sending a series of whistles that ripple through the landscape like a secret song. Whistles could also serve as warnings, short, sharp blasts alerting communities to approaching raiders or fires. As you sink deeper into sleep, listen with your imagination for that distant whistle, a simple sound carrying messages of life, order, and survival across the ages. Chapter 24. Pigeon Post, the wings of communication. Now, as your breathing deepens, imagine the soft flutter of wings against the morning sky, tiny messengers rising into the air, swift and steady. Pigeons have carried messages for thousands of years, their homing instinct guiding them back to their roosts across vast distances. In ancient Persia, Egypt, and Rome, these birds were prized as living postmen, able to deliver secret messages faster than any human runner. Picture a soldier in the trenches of World War I, writing a desperate note, attaching it to a pigeon's leg, and releasing the bird into the cold, grey sky. The pigeon, undeterred by danger, dodged predators and harsh weather, racing home with news that could save lives. During World War II, pigeons were credited with saving thousands of lives, carrying critical messages when radios failed or were compromised. The reliability of these birds was legendary. Some even awarded medals for their service. Imagine the patience and hope of the sender, watching the bird take flight, praying the fragile message reaches its destination. Pigeons connected leaders, armies, and families, bridging gaps in a time before electronic communication. As your eyelids grow heavy, picture those wings beating steadily against the wind, carrying whispers of courage, urgency, and hope through the corridors of history. Chapter 25. Smoke rings and mirrors, the secret language of gestures. Now, as the world around you softens into shadows, imagine subtle gestures, hands raised, fingers folded, subtle nods, a silent language spoken without words. Long before the modern era, secret hand signals and gestures communicated warnings, plans and identities, especially among thieves, spies, and secret societies. In medieval Europe, Thieves' guilds had secret signs to recognize members or mark safe houses. Imagine a hooded figure brushing dust off a wall, revealing a strange symbol only the initiated could read, a warning, safe to enter, or danger close. Similarly, sailors and soldiers developed hand signals to coordinate actions silently during night raids or battles. In the courts of kings and queens, courtiers used subtle gestures to convey loyalty or dissent, coded messages hidden in plain sight. The Native American tribes of the Great Plains developed complex sign languages that allowed different groups to communicate across language barriers. Picture a council meeting where leaders from many tribes exchange ideas through graceful, deliberate signs, a conversation flowing without a single spoken word. Tonight, as your breath slows and your body relaxes, imagine those quiet signals, the secret language of hands, eyes, and subtle movement, whispering stories of trust, danger, and unity through the ages. Chapter 26. The Code of Knots. Messages in tangles and loops. As your breath deepens and your body sinks further into rest, imagine your fingers tying intricate knots, loops and tangles carefully arranged to carry secret meanings. Throughout history, knots have been more than just practical tools. They have been a silent code, a way to send messages without a single word spoken. Consider the quipu, used by the Inca civilization in the Andes Mountains. Rows of colored, knotted strings held complex information, records of crops, censuses, and even historical events. To an outsider, a quipu was a mysterious bundle of chords, but to the trained eyes of the Inca, it was a rich language of numbers and narratives. Imagine an Inca scribe sitting quietly in the shadow of towering peaks, tying a new knot to mark a bountiful harvest or a victorious battle. But knot messaging wasn't limited to South America. In Xiao, ancient China and Korea, knot tying served as reminders, orders, and secret messages, sometimes worn as jewelry or attached to clothing. In medieval Europe, spies and messengers might use tied ribbons or strings to indicate secret meeting places or coded instructions. The complexity of knots meant messages could be passed discreetly, hidden in everyday objects. Picture a traveler tying a ribbon around a gatepost in a foreign town. Only a trusted friend knows what the pattern means. Tonight, as your thoughts soften, imagine your fingers tracing the curves of a secret knot. Quiet message woven into the fabric of history, waiting patiently to be unraveled. Chapter 27. Drums that speak, the thunder of distant voices. Now, let your mind hear the distant, rhythmic beating of drums, powerful, echoing, alive. Across jungles, savannas, and mountain valleys, drums have been one of the oldest and most resonant forms of communication. In West Africa, talking drums mimic the tones and rhythms of local languages, sending messages over miles of dense forest. Imagine a skilled drummer perched atop a hill, beating a pattern that tells a village hundreds of miles away of approaching visitors, celebrations, or warnings. The drum's voice carries across the canopy, bouncing from tree to tree, filling the air with sound that is both language and music. In Native American cultures, drums have been used in ceremonies and as signals for gatherings or battles. Picture a nighttime campfire where drumming pulses through the air, calling warriors and families together in unity. Drums create not just messages, but connections. Their deep, vibrating beats weaving the fabric of community and history. As your body sinks deeper into the calm of night, listen with your imagination for the steady heartbeat of the drum. A timeless voice calling across the distances of time and space, carrying stories that echo into your dreams. Chapter 28. Lanterns in the dark. Silent signals of light. Now, As your breathing slows and the world grows dimmer, picture the flicker of a lantern's glow in the deepening night. Before electricity, light itself was a powerful messenger, a beacon of hope, a warning, or a call to action. Across centuries and continents, lanterns have been used to send silent signals through darkness, guiding travelers or warning of danger. Imagine a network of watchtowers perched along rugged cliffs or forested hills, each holding a lantern in its window. One lantern might mean, all is safe. 2 lanterns, prepare for attack. And a swinging lantern, enemy sighted. In feudal Japan, fire beacons on mountaintops relayed urgent news of invading armies across vast distances, flickering like fiery stars in the night. In 18th century Europe, lanterns hung in taverns or windows sent covert messages, sometimes as a discreet signal to secret lovers, or a sign of political dissent hidden in plain sight. Picture a young messenger navigating a dark, winding street, passing under a hanging lantern that signals danger nearby, without a word being spoken. The dance of light, shadow, and flicker became a secret language, understood only by those who watch carefully. As your eyes grow heavier, imagine the gentle glow of lanterns lighting the path ahead, their quiet signals guiding footsteps through centuries of whispered history. Chapter 29. Mirror Messages. Reflecting Light and Secrets. Now, in the quiet hush of your breathing, envision a gleaming mirror catching the sunlight, flashing, a bright sudden beam across a distant hill. This simple reflection of light, harnessed with skill and patience, became an extraordinary method of communication. In ancient Greece and Rome, heliographs, mirrors angled to reflect sunlight, sent coded flashes over miles of open terrain. Picture a soldier atop a tower, shifting a small, polished mirror just so, creating bursts of light that spell out messages in Morse-like codes. In the 19th century, explorers and armies used mirrors to send signals in places where voices and flags could not reach. Even on the seas, sailors used mirrors to flash distress signals or communicate between ships without raising a sound. Imagine the tension as a rescuer on the shore spots a sudden gleam, decoding the flashes that mean help is coming. These reflected signals required patience and precision, the angle of the sun, the time of day, and the receiver's careful watch. It was a conversation of light, a dazzling dance between sender and receiver, invisible to those not looking. Tonight, as your body sinks further into rest, imagine those beams of light, shining secrets across the distance, reflecting human ingenuity, hope, and connection through the ages. Chapter 30. Whispers in the Wind, the Art of Drum and Horn Signals. As you continue to sink deeper into relaxation, imagine standing in a wide-open valley, where your breath is carried softly by the wind. Now, hear the deep, resonant boom of a drum, the sharp call of a horn echoing across the hills. Ancient sounds that once conveyed urgent messages over great distances. In many cultures, drums and horns were not just musical instruments, but essential tools for communication. The indigenous peoples of North America used powerful drum beats to summon gatherings or warn of approaching danger. In medieval Europe, horns were sounded in castles and towns to alert citizens of invasions or fires. Imagine the tense moments as a hunter hears the distant blast of a horn signaling the start of a hunt or a call for reinforcements. The tones, rhythms, and sequences of these instruments formed a language understood by entire communities, spanning forests and mountains. In West Africa, talking drums mimicked the cadence of speech, able to relay complex messages about family news or tribal affairs. Picture a master drummer sitting patiently in the shade of a baobab tree, sending vital news through rhythm and beat. Tonight, as your eyelids grow heavier, let the sounds of drums and horns fade gently into your dreams, carrying you on a journey through the landscapes of history, where sound was a lifeline and a signal of connection. Chapter 31. The Secret Signs of the Stars, Celestial Codes in History. Now, as your breathing slows to a calm rhythm, picture a vast night sky sparkling with stars, ancient and eternal. For millennia, humans have looked up to these celestial lights not only for navigation, but as guides and messengers. The stars themselves became a code, a silent language written across the heavens. In Polynesia, skilled navigators read the stars to guide their voyages across thousands of miles of open ocean, using constellations as a living map. Imagine a night watchman on a ship's deck, tracing the patterns of Orion or the Southern Cross, steadying the course through endless dark waters. Ancient civilizations also used the movement of stars and planets to mark times of planting, harvest, and religious ceremonies, a cosmic calendar encoding knowledge critical for survival. Some secret, societies and mystics believed that hidden messages were encrypted in star charts, meant only for the initiated to decode. Picture astronomers in medieval Europe, quietly mapping the sky, their observations folded into secret manuscripts. As your body drifts deeper into rest, imagine yourself lying beneath that starry canopy, feeling the vastness of the universe and the whispers of ancient wisdom shining down. The stars, like messages from the past, guide us still, silent, steady, and eternal. Chapter 32. Invisible Ink. Secrets written in the shadows. As your breathing softens and your body relaxes deeper, imagine a quiet scholar in a dimly lit room, carefully applying a hidden message on parchment. Invisible ink, a secret art that has spanned centuries, allowed people to write messages that vanish in plain sight. In ancient times, secret agents and spies used substances like lemon, juice, milk, or even urine to write messages only visible when heated. Picture a messenger nervously handing over a seemingly blank letter to a trusted friend, who later holds it near a candle's flame, watching faint letters slowly emerge. During the Renaissance, couriers risked their lives carrying these concealed messages to reveal conspiracies or call for aid. Even famous figures like Leonardo da Vinci are rumored to have used secret inks to protect their inventions and writings. Invisible ink was more than a curiosity. It was a lifeline for revolutionaries, diplomats, and lovers who dared not speak aloud. Tonight, as your eyes grow heavy, imagine the delicate glow of secret words appearing softly on parchment, whispering their mysteries just for you to discover in your dreams. Chapter 33. The Language of Flowers, Messages in Petals and Thorns. Now, as your breath slows and your mind drifts like petals on a gentle breeze, envision a garden blooming with hidden meanings. The language of flowers, a delicate code that has spoken volumes without a single spoken word. In Victorian England, where social rules often forbade open expressions of feeling, flowers became the perfect messengers of emotion. Imagine a young woman carefully choosing a bouquet, a red rose for love, a yellow chrysanthemum for slighted friendship, or a sprig of lavender for devotion. Each flower, colour, and arrangement spoke a silent message understood by the keenest of hearts. But this secret language dates far beyond Victorian times. The Greeks and Romans also assigned symbolic meanings to plants. The tulip mania in the 17th century Netherlands wasn't just about commerce, but also passion and intrigue woven through gardens and salons. Even in Japan, the subtle art of hanakotoba assigns meanings to flowers, a poetic language blossoming quietly through the seasons. As your body sinks deeper into rest, imagine yourself wandering through a secret garden, where every flower is a word, every bouquet a sentence. The language of flowers invites you to listen with your heart, a beautiful and silent conversation blooming softly into your dreams. Chapter 34. The secret codes of tattoos, stories inked on skin. As you drift further into calm, picture the slow, steady buzz of a needle etching tiny symbols and stories onto skin. Tattoos have long been more than mere decoration. They are secret messages worn openly, yet understood only by those who know the code. In ancient Polynesia, tattoos marked status, achievements, and tribal identity, a complex language told in intricate patterns. Imagine a warrior proudly displaying his tattoos, each line and swirl telling tales of battles won, journeys taken, or sacred rites completed. In Europe during the Middle Ages, knights and pilgrims carried tattoos as signs of faith and protection, discreet symbols etched on their flesh. During times of war and imprisonment, tattoos served as secret marks among prisoners or members of underground resistance movements. Even today, tattoos carry hidden meanings, symbols of solidarity, rebellion, or personal history known only to the wearer and a trusted few. Tonight, as your body softens with sleep, imagine the slow, deliberate creation of these secret codes, stories forever inked in skin, whispering their ancient tales as you rest. Chapter 35. The Silent Language of Hands, Signs and Gestures. Now, imagine a quiet room where words are forbidden, but hands speak louder than voices ever could. From secret societies to everyday life, hand signs and gestures have long conveyed hidden meanings across cultures and centuries. In ancient Rome, the raised thumb in the Colosseum wasn't just a random signal. It carried meaning of life or death for gladiators. During the Middle Ages, guild members used secret handshakes and signs to recognize each other and protect trade secrets. Imagine spies exchanging subtle finger flicks or taps in crowded markets, sharing intelligence without uttering a word. Sign languages, developed by deaf communities, are beautiful and complex systems of silent communication, rich with emotion and nuance. In political movements and protests, raised fists and other gestures became powerful symbols of resistance and unity. As you grow heavier and your eyelids droop, picture hands weaving silent stories, conversations told without sound, a dance of fingers and palms that connect hearts and minds across time. Let the quiet language of hands lull you deeper into the peaceful night, where silence speaks volumes. Chapter 36. Codes in the Shadows, the Art of Steganography. As you settle deeper into rest, imagine secret messages hidden in plain sight. Invisible not because they vanish, but because they are concealed within something ordinary. This ancient art of steganography, meaning covered writing, allowed spies and scholars to pass messages undetected for thousands of years. Picture a simple piece of parchment, filled with seemingly random letters or an innocent drawing. But hidden inside, there lies a secret code, the true message concealed beneath layers of deception. In ancient Greece, messages were written on wooden tablets covered with wax, then hidden under the wax's surface. During World War II, invisible inks, microdots, and codes embedded in newspapers became lifelines of intelligence, saving countless lives. Imagine a spy carefully folding a letter, knowing it holds secrets that could change the course of history. The genius of steganography is that the message's existence is denied, making it one of the most effective ways to communicate in secret. As your breath grows slow and even, imagine these hidden messages slipping silently into your dreams, whispering stories from the shadows of history. Chapter 37. The Secret Art of Semaphore, Flags that Speak. Now, picture a ship rocking gently on the open sea, sails billowing and flags fluttering high. Before radios and satellites, sailors and soldiers relied on a colorful, silent language called semaphore to send urgent messages across distances. Semaphore, uses flags held in specific positions to represent letters and words, a code visible to those who understand, but meaningless to the untrained eye. Imagine two ships communicating through a series of swift, precise flag movements, transmitting orders, warnings, or news across the waves. On land, semaphore towers were erected on hilltops to relay messages. Rapidly, a network of signals bridging towns and armies. The Napoleonic Wars and other major conflicts saw semaphore as a vital tool for command and control, saving countless lives through swift communication. Even today, semaphore is taught to naval officers and scouts, a timeless reminder that sometimes silence speaks loudest. As you drift deeper, imagine those colorful flags snapping crisply in the wind, sending vital messages carried by the breeze, guiding you gently toward restful dreams. Chapter 38. The Art of Morse, Dots and Dashes that Changed the World. As you sink deeper into calmness, imagine the quiet tapping of a telegraph key, each click sending a sequence of dots and dashes, a new language born from electricity, revolutionizing communication forever. Morse code, created in the 1830s by Samuel Morse and Alfred Vail, transformed the world by enabling instant long-distance messaging for the first time. Picture a telegraph operator in a small office, fingers, flying over the key, sending urgent news across continents in bursts of sound. During wars, Morse code saved lives by coordinating troop movements and warning of incoming danger faster than ever before. Imagine ships at sea, sending SOS signals in Morse, their distress calls cutting through static, hoping someone hears their plea. Even amateur radio operators kept the tradition alive, using Morse to connect across vast distances with a secret shared language. Tonight, as your breath slows and your body relaxes, imagine the rhythm of those dots and dashes, like a heartbeat echoing softly through the night, guiding you gently into dreams of electric whispers. Chapter 39. The Hidden Messages of Music, Codes in Melody and Rhythm. Now, imagine a quiet room filled with soft melodies, notes arranged carefully, not just for beauty, but to conceal secret messages. Throughout history, composers and musicians have woven hidden meanings into their music, using rhythm, harmony, and lyrics to encode stories, warnings, or calls to action. In the Baroque era, composers like Johann Sebastian Bach embedded musical ciphers within their compositions, a delicate puzzle only the initiated could decipher. During times of oppression, enslaved people in the Americas used spirituals and work songs to communicate plans and hope without alerting their captors. Picture a minstrel playing a seemingly simple tune that carried a hidden call for freedom, its meaning known only to those listening closely. Even political movements and secret societies have used music as a subtle form of resistance, a melody masking messages in plain sight. As your body drifts deeper into rest, let the gentle flow of music carry you, its secret harmonies guiding you softly toward peaceful dreams. Chapter 40. Whispers Through Time, the Enduring Power of Secret Languages. As you lie comfortably, your body heavy and your mind peaceful, reflect on the countless ways humans have found to speak without speaking, to share hopes, fears, secrets, and dreams through hidden codes and silent messages. From the carved stones of ancient crypts to the fluttering flags of distant ships, from secret tattoos to melodies that only the heart can hear. These secret languages connect us across time and space. Imagine the countless unseen hands that have passed down these traditions, whispering in shadows, weaving stories in silence, and guarding knowledge with quiet reverence. Tonight, as the world grows still, let these hidden languages remind you that even in silence, there is communication, connection, and meaning. Your journey through history's whispers is a gentle reminder that sometimes what is left unsaid speaks loudest of all. Let yourself drift now, deeper and deeper, carried on the soft wings of these ancient secrets, toward dreams filled with mystery, wonder, and calm. Thank you for joining me on this quiet journey through the secret languages of history. Before you close your eyes completely, I wonder, what secret language speaks most clearly to your heart? Where are you from? And what time is it where you rest tonight? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below if you like. But for now, let go of your worries, sink into your pillow, and allow sleep to gently carry you away. Good night, and may your dreams be peaceful and full of wonder.